first question, just make sure I understood. Is it $1,025,000, is that what you said? Okay, that's what I thought you said. And what is the last year? It runs through June of 20 what? You said 6 years, so you're talking about 6 years from now?
Yeah, I think it's 29.
29, okay, thank you.
You counting down my days already, Mark?
I mean, I think you should have got a 10-year deal, I don't know why.
Why did you, you mentioned it a little bit in there, but why did you feel compelled to do that now?
Well, he's down to 2 years remaining on his current contract, and all of his peers in the SEC have longer pending contracts. So I thought it was important to show to Josh our collective confidence in his performance and our desire that he remain the athletic director at the University of Georgia for an extended period of time.
As if you would call this a competitive raise? Was he being sought after?
He hasn't told me that he is being recruited, but it would not surprise me that he would be. And so I wanted to express to him our confidence in his performance.
What can you tell us about the legal discussion?
I really can't. Yeah, I really can't.
Nothing, I mean, the nature of it,
Yeah,
to
I really
retain counsel possibly?
No, I can't really discuss that. I'd rather Mike Raber, since he knows what can and can't be discussed, our general counsel, provide you any information there, but I don't think I'm at liberty to discuss what went on related to the legal matters.
Josh, I guess just what's your reaction to the news of the contract?
Extremely grateful. Look, I got into this business 20 plus years ago as a student equipment manager. My first job at Louisiana Monroe was making $20,000 a year as football operations. So I never got into this to make money. I got into it because I love to serve student athletes and work in college athletics. Athens, University of Georgia is a dream to me. I want to spend the rest of my career here. I want to retire here. I think it's a blessing. So it's extremely gratifying to see your hard work be recognized. But again, it's not about the money for me. It's more about the years and wanting to get guaranteed because I want to be here for a very long time. And it's just grateful that, look, this is not a competitive offer. I have not had to seek out and not had to listen. I'm not in that market. This is where I want to be. So that's what makes it even more rewarding that you're not in that situation where you're having to leverage. But
Josh,
it's just a blessing.
Sorry, can you expand on the top 10 Learfield sports standings? You talked about that somewhat in here. You talked about the direction and what you tell your coaches about that?
Yeah, so again, I said it in the meeting, but I think it's one of those things that you've got to say it. You don't end up at the top of the Learfield Cup one day without making that a goal, making that a priority. So I think we have to say it and we have to believe in it. Obviously, it's a challenge. We know that there's some sport, the other universities that have many more sports programs. You can only count the top 19, but they get to drop lower scores. So it's a comprehensive look against all your teams. It's you look at the teams that aren't scoring and how do we get them their score, and how the ones that are scoring get them higher. But my math, I'm projecting, and look, there's still things to happen between softball, baseball, track, and men's golf. So it's a floating number, but I'm projecting us to have a very good finish, and I'll be tracking every single result from here until the end of it all. But feeling very good, and I think it's going to be a very tight race for the top spot in the SEC. I mean, razor thin margin between a handful of schools. So it's going to be fun to watch this play out. And my goal right now is for us to be at the top of that list when it's all said and done.
You mentioned 19 of 21 sports have earned NCAA tournament bids in the last year. Did I understand that right? 19 of your 21 earned postseason bids.
I had to check that exact math. Remember that equestrian does not get equestrian does not get a count because they're NEACA sports. We don't get any Learfield points for that. If we had that sport as a counter, it would be a big benefit to us because there are other sports. Schools have a smaller sport like rowing or something else that can help them. But
the point on that being, I mean, it's pretty quick. You think, okay, men's basketball didn't make it, and baseball just recently didn't make it. Scott Strickland's been here 10 years. Have you met with him yet, and have you addressed his future? I think he's still contracted through 26.
Yeah, I have not had a chance to meet with Scott these last couple days. It's been obviously very busy, but I look forward to getting with him soon and meeting with him and talking about the direction of our program.
Kind of follow up on that, he said in his press conference after the game on Tuesday that this was a bad year. As athletic director, how would you assess the season and how it's went?
Look, this is not the standard that Coach wants, and I guarantee there's no one more disappointed than Coach Strickland this season that this isn't the standard we want to be in regionals and moving on. And it's been a tough year. There have been a lot of injuries. I am proud of the way they fought through and won some series late. Had a rough start, 1-9 early, then made a run. Great series against Arkansas, great series against Tennessee, and then getting one against LSU. But there's a standard that we achieve to be to that ties into our goal of being successful in every single program we have.
As far as the baseball facilities go, are the improvements now that are being made in your mind that they put them on equal level now with some of the other schools?
Yeah, so I think, again, when we started this, it was going to focus on student-athlete amenities first and foremost, right? So we're talking about the locker room, the lounge, the hitting facility, the pitching lab, the areas that they spend 365 in. Now, look, we know when this project's done, it still won't be as big as Mississippi State or Ole Miss or some other facilities that have larger capacities. And we may grow one day to larger points, but our first focus has got to be on the student-athlete amenities. So when they're recruiting them, they can see where they're going to spend their time. And I think when this project's complete, it'll be in line with all of our peers in terms of the student-athlete spaces. And look, if the project goes well and we manage the budget correctly, there may even be some more opportunities in left field and right field to keep providing more dynamic experience for our fans, because for me, I'm always trying to improve the fan experience as well.
Do you hope to talk to Scott before the meetings next week in Destin, or is that going to be something afterwards?
Yeah, I'm gonna get with him here pretty soon, just as we get through board meetings. So
With the facilities now up to par on the level, and I know Georgia has the Hope Scholarship, but one of the things that's been brought up is the waiver of out-of-state scholarships in sports that have partial scholarships. That's obviously very disadvantageous when Georgia's, I guess, 46. Is that a state rule? Is that a Georgia rule? How does that work with waiving, like some of the other schools you compete with, waive the out-of-state scholarship?
yeah, I can't compare where it's an advantage or not, because you can counter that with the advantage of having the Hope Scholarship, and the way that the state funds that scholarship is phenomenal for those same equivalency sports you talk about. So
For Georgia athletes though, right?
Correct.
Not out-of-state kids, is that right?
for Georgia athletes, and then you got to remember that for a lot of our sports, there's a hotbed of recruiting in those, whether it's soccer or softball or baseball. So I'm not one to focus on what we don't have or what we perceive as a challenge. I want to focus on the positives. We have a phenomenal university where a young man and young woman can get a phenomenal degree, live in a great college town, and I'm not going to focus on whatever perceived disadvantages.
That decision's not made at your level, right? That's a decision that's made through the state or the educational system. I mean, where does that decision come on, whether or not you can waive out-of-state scholarships for athletes outside of Georgia?
I think that would come at higher, maybe, I don't know if that's a World Regents level. I think that's common throughout all. Georgia Tech is facing the same, to my knowledge. I don't want to speak on something I'm not 100% sure of, but that's never been brought to me as a disadvantage for us by my coaches.
President Moorhead, obviously this has been probably the most challenging few months since Josh has been AD, in terms of the crash and what happened after that, in terms of some of the fallout. What have you learned about Josh's stewardship of the department through those trying times?
I think he's been very mature, steady, thoughtful. We've had a great relationship through that process, discussing our response. You obviously never want to go through a situation of that nature, but when you go through it, you want to be working with someone who you have great confidence that they're making good decisions.
Obviously, there have been a couple arrests since then for speeding. What's your concern level about that?
Well, we obviously want our student athletes to obey the law and to follow the rules and regulations, as we want all of our students at the university to do. But there are going to be growing pains with young people, and so I'm confident Coach Smart will continue to address those issues as they arise.
Should discipline for these players be public so the public is assured that the program is addressing it?
Well, I know that Coach Smart is addressing it, but I leave it up to him to determine what he wants to say publicly or not say publicly. I trust his judgment in that regard.
Josh, you pointed out the men's basketball recruiting in there, and made mention of the trip to Italy. What particularly impressed you about Mike White during this offseason, and what's the backstory to the Italy trip?
Italy trip is something we plan actually long in advance. It's something that you want to rotate and give that option to. Women's basketball most recently had taken the trip. It was their time, their turn to take the trip. What impressed me most about Mike is his attitude and the way when the season ended, we spoke immediately and he was ready to get after it. And he said, we're gonna get this thing fixed. We're gonna get it right. There was never a moment of negativity. It was all positivity of how he was gonna move forward. And I think that translated into an active recruiting approach for both high school and transfers. And I think that positive energy that he displayed and the can-do-itness, it paid off. And I think he's revamped the roster, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go. And again, so excited that they're going to get that opportunity to go to Italy, not just from competing, but what a great experience for young men to be able to go to Italy and experience an opportunity that they may never have.
When is it that they're making the trip?
It's late July.
Is Georgia in support of a 9-game SEC football schedule, and how do you expect that's going to, will it be finalized, you think, next week?
As it relates to the schedule, we're not going to comment publicly on that right now. We're out of respect to the SEC. We'll have meetings next week, and you'll find out more about that when that's over.
There's about a half dozen schools I'd say probably have publicly said why is that your stance?
Because a kid keep the SEC first, and we've got internal meetings we got to have, and us being public about that doesn't help our meetings that we're going to have.
I think you started to smirk a little bit at that. Are you ready for this to be done either way?
I am ready for it to be done. We've talked about it and talked about it. I'm not sure, it will get completed. We'll see. There's just a lot of dynamics still playing around on that issue.
What are the dynamics?
Well, and I may be saying more than Commissioner Sankey would want me to say, but obviously if you go to a 9-game schedule, you have to be compensated for going to a 9-game schedule. So, there's still some dynamics that have to play out with our media partners.
Let's take 2 more questions.
The Florida announcement yesterday, the extension there, what went into that, and have there been any discussions for what could potentially happen if there are renovations to the stadium down there?
Yeah, so the first factor in that is it's a great financial situation for both schools. It's also, it doesn't get reported enough that the city of Jacksonville is subsidizing this game. So when you look at what they give to each school before a ticket is sold, it allows to keep those tickets at a very fair price, probably the most inexpensive neutral site game of this magnitude by far. So I think that's a big part of it, the way they operate, and it's been great. I think moving forward, we're going to look through every option, different neutral sites, home and home. We'll lay it all out there and evaluate. We have time to do that now, because that won't be until 26 and 27. But I'm excited to look into what the possibilities are and go from there.
Is there an immediate reaction by the athletic department on the speeding issue? Obviously these guys have NIL supplements and stuff now. They probably can get cars from people and things like that. Or is that being readdressed, or like if you sent down a man like, hey, we need to meet about this again, that's 5 and 3 months. We need to stop this now.
I think just like you would as a parent, you want to look at every lever you can pull to try to, there's obviously disciplinary measures, there's educational measures. We're going to look to intensify all those efforts, because I don't think it's just one thing you do. There's discipline, there's education, and I think there are no shortage of things we're going to keep doing to rectify this problem. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.